Good afternoon, welcome to GrainTV. My name's Cody Bills. Today is the 5th here. It's a Thursday, which means we had export sales out early this morning. But before we get into that, let's turn over to the Grain Hedge trading platform and see where we closed off the day. Corn up 1.5 cents, soybeans down 8 cents, and wheat in Chicago down 15.5 cents here on the day. Wheat is absolutely taking it on the chin. Take a look here at the US dollar. You'll notice US dollar broke through the resistance up there, now continuing the trend higher here. That's something we talked about in yesterday's trade. I wouldn't be surprised if this continues to put pressure on grains, particularly for wheat. And wheat, we know, is very weak technically here. It was down near the lows. It broke through that today. I really think the US dollar is putting a lot of pressure here on wheat. Export sales for wheat came out today. They were within analyst expectations, about 197,000 metric ton, or 197,000 metric tons of those sales here were from that gas tender that we saw last week. Bottom line here for wheat is it really is struggling on the global market to maintain competitiveness. The US dollar continues to gain strength. The euro continues to sell off. We know that European wheat is really feeding the world right now, and so we're going to need to continue to see some declines in wheat price in order to get competitive on this global market. Also, one thing that we want to talk about, of course, is export sales this morning. I mentioned what we saw for wheat. It was within analyst expectations. Export sales were up 43% here week over week, so that is positive to see. But let's talk a little bit about corn and soybeans. You'll notice for corn we were up 16% week over week. We saw 828,000 metric tons booked here. That's within analyst expectations, which range between 700,000 and 1 million metric tons. Bottom line here is when you look at corn and you look at the cumulative exports here, we're 35.6 million metric tons booked at this time of the year compared to last year, which was around 37.5, and the pace that's expected and needed to meet the USDA expectations of 31.5. That green line on this chart is the pace that we need, taking into account seasonality, in order to meet USDA expectations, and you can see we're well ahead of pace right now, and we're almost approaching last year's pace, which is pretty impressive. Let's talk a little bit about soybeans here because this is very interesting. We have 499,000 metric tons sold here this week. This is very positive. During this time of the year, especially with the amount of sales that we have on the books from earlier this year, this amount just continues to push us well ahead of pace to meet USDA expectations. This was up 9% over last week. Expectations range between 300 to 500,000 metric tons. We were on the high side of those expectations. Take a look at the cumulative export sale commitments. You can see we're well ahead of the blue line, which is last year's pace. We're well ahead of the green line, which is this year's pace that's needed to meet USDA expectations. In fact, we're 97.7% booked of the USDA expectations. So we've already booked 97.7% of sales. We only need 1 million metric tons left, 1.08 million metric tons to be sold here, and we will have met USDA expectations. Keep in mind that on Tuesday next week, the USDA will be coming out with their revised supply and demand forecast here in their WASDE report. I think what we're going to see is soybeans probably continue to see a revision in ending stocks lower here. We see very strong export sales, as you've seen, and I think that we're going to need to see cancellations, which we haven't seen any sign of, in order to maintain this current USDA forecast, which I think may be a bit unrealistic here based on the U.S. soybean pace of export sales. Guys, if you have any questions about what we talked about today, tomorrow, of course, you can always give us a call. Number's 877-472-4607. Tomorrow we're going to go over really the basis environment, what we've seen in terms of changes throughout the U.S. We're also going to talk about some of the expectations here for the report on Tuesday. Like I mentioned earlier on in the show, the WASDE report is going to be coming out on the 10th. And then the following week here on the 16th, we're going to have NOPA crush numbers for soybeans. Guys, if you have any questions about what we talked about today, please give me a call, or if you haven't done so already, get signed up for a demo. See what it's like to have live quotes on your mobile phone and on your desktop, especially as we go into this WASDE report here. It's very interesting to see the trade react, be able to see it real time, and just what traders think of the USDA report when it comes out. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll see you here on Friday.